Welcome back to this special edition of Face the State, taped on the day of Ned Lamont's inauguration as our 89th governor here at the state capitol in Hartford. And we are joined now by a person who has a position that didn't exist before the Lamont administration, the Chief Operating Officer, and he is Paul Mounds. And Mr. Mounds, good to see you here in the program.
Dennis, thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about this job and how it came to be.
Yeah, well, one thing probably your viewers know, I previously served for a governor, Governor Malloy, as his legislative and policy director. And one thing that I realized in that time is that the chief of staff takes on a lot of roles. And the chief of staff has to be aware of what's going on in agencies, has to be aware of what's going on in the state, in our communities. It has to do with strategy, has to do with policy. This allows to alleviate some of the pressures on the chief of staff by having one individual who's going to be managing the day-to-day operations of our agencies. It's a position that has been taken on in other states, and we look forward to implement it here in Connecticut.
So how was it not done before? Who used to do all those other duties?
It was very ad hoc in a lot of ways. The chief of staff would either delegate to various members of the senior staff. I used to be able to do that in a senior staff role, and as well as take on a lot of it on his own. So it was really based upon the situation, based upon the moment in a lot of ways. So this allows it to be truly centralized, and it will allow us to actually drive on various metrics and success within our agencies as part of our long-term mission.
So the taxpayer's home is saying, well, how does it affect me? How will it make government more streamlined?
Well, first and foremost, my position, while a new position, is not going to, it's within an existing staffing role that was within the office. So we just changed the little things within the office. In terms of how it's going to affect them, as Governor Lamont said in his speech, we're going to really focus on the customer experience, and be able to do that through this role is to really have performance metrics within our agencies, really get real feedback about what's going on in the agencies, and be able to address any issues going ahead. We just wanted to make sure that no matter your input into the state government, whether it's at DMV, DSS, Department of Social Services, whether it's at Department of Transportation, you'll be able to have a real sense about how your government is serving you.
You're the perfect person to ask this because you've worked for both Governor Malloy and now Governor Lamont. What's the difference between the two in terms of management style and personality?
Well, I think a lot of people called Governor Malloy a porcupine in a lot of ways.
Prickly, yeah.
Prickly, I have a different experience with Governor Malloy. I think he did have a soft side. He probably didn't show it as much, but he did have a soft side, and his soft side was about caring for Connecticut. I would say when it comes to Governor Lamont, he has a very collaborative mindset. He wants to make sure that all parties, all individuals, all sides are taken into account in any decision making. So while there might be differences in personality, I think there's similarities in terms of how they feel about the state of Connecticut and really want to move the state forward.
You know, it seems that to be run by a business leader is going to be a little bit different because the state's really not used to that. We've had politicians for the last quarter century anyway, if not beyond. And when I had them on Face the State last week, Governor Lamont was saying, well, you know, Susan's going to take care of the legislative because that's her deal. I'm going to take care of, you know, recruiting the businesses and the larger picture sort of things. How will that work?
Well,
in a practical,
like I said, it's all about working to your strengths. And I think for me, in terms of them creating this position, you're right. Governor Lamont hasn't previously served as an elected official, whether it's a first selectman, mayor, a legislator. So this is his first elected position on this level. Even though he did serve as a selectman at one point. Susan Beisowitz is someone who has been, who's in her lieutenant governor role, she's someone who has been in the state capitol. She knows, she has relationships, she knows the process. So everyone's going to be working to their strength. And then with the COO role, that's going to allow for that individual and myself and with my team to be able to really drive on our agencies and really get the results that we're looking for.
Everything always seems rosy and friendly at the start of a new administration. It certainly was 8 years ago with Governor Malloy, but things can go sour pretty quickly. How long does the governor have to really show some progress in terms of turning the state around?
Well, I would say it's my hope that throughout the whole 4 years he'll be able to show the progress to turn the state around. But I think in reality, his first budget is going to be that first test in terms of whether people are in agreement with the direction that he wants to go forward with Connecticut. We believe that the direction that we're looking to go forward, building off of the structures that we had before, is something that the state of Connecticut will buy into. But we also know that it's our job to sell that mission. And so we will work with the legislature, we will work with mayors and first selectmen, and we will work with our agencies, state employees, and business leaders to really bring about that vision. So our time frame, you can say, is probably a few months. But I think in reality, once people buy into the mission, it's going to show throughout our tenure.
I know it's still being crafted and still being finalized, still being tweaked and worked on and researched even.
Yeah.
But what are we going to see in this new budget?
Well, I think you're going to see a budget that's going to take into account the mindset of one Connecticut. That no matter if you're a business owner, you're a family, you're a senior, whether you're a student, this is going to be a Connecticut that can work for you, Connecticut that's going to be able to serve you. And so I think overall, as a general message, we're going to have a budget that's going to be able to work for all of Connecticut and all residents of the state.
Let's talk about some of the big things that you talked about in the speech. Number one, a digital state. What exactly does that mean?
Well, digital state means we want a state that is ready for the future. And so that means you need to invest in now to be able to do that. We want to be able to have a state that no matter your interactions, as I talked about before, with your departments and your agencies, it's going to be current and ready. And so for us, what we're going to do, we're going to look at our processes here in the state of Connecticut through the Chief Operating Officer office. We're going to look at how are we procuring? How are we actually having those interfaces with the public? Is it done in a modern way? So we're going to take the time to dig deep on that. And so we're going to have a state that is not only going to be able to serve you on a digital level, it's going to be a state that's going to be able to serve you now into the future.
Three of the hot button issues that get talked about a lot by voters out there are marijuana, casinos, and tolls. How much of that will be taking up the budget speech coming up in 6 weeks?
I think it was part of the campaign, various elements of that was part of campaign platforms for the governor. I think now, once you go from campaigning, now you got to go into governing. And now we're going to actually go and get deep into the numbers and really see where we're going to go for different directions. I would say we have seen what the governor has said on tolls in terms of truck-only tolls, very similar to what's going on in Rhode Island. And I think overall what we're going to see is the campaign platforms that the governor has put forth, how it's going to be able to now be attributed within a state budget. So I think we're still working on various elements, but I think by the time we propose our budget and have our speech, you'll see it all.
Paul Mounds, the state's very first and new COO, Chief Operating Officer. We thank you so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me, Dennis.
And we thank you for watching Face the State. We leave you with some sights and sounds of this week's historic inauguration.
Let's fix the damn budget once and for all. You with me? I believe in Connecticut, and you're here because you believe in Connecticut. Let's get Connecticut growing again.